Hello, I'm Sam Kaufman, founder and director of The Human Path. The Human Path is a school where we teach a lot of different subjects. One of those subjects is herbalism, herbal medicine, plant medicine. My own background is as a Special Forces or Green Beret medic, and that started about 25 years ago, and even back then I was already looking towards plant medicine and combining the worlds of field medicine, wilderness survival, wilderness medicine, all together into one kind of world that I've been working at for the last 25 years and really never looked back. And so the Human Path is a school where we teach a lot of that, and I'd like to talk about that today. I'd like to talk about one particular subject, give you a short class on what I think is really an important subject out in the wilderness area, out in the remote, or even just around the home, and that is tooth care and gum care using what we call tooth sticks. So what I'm going to do is talk a lot about the tooth sticks themselves, as well as what herbs can go into a tooth stick formula, how we use it. We make basically a type of tooth powder, and what are some of the important things to bear in mind when we're doing that, how we use the tooth sticks, and how we can actually do almost what I would say superior dental health even to a toothbrush, provided that we combine things like flossing with that tooth care. Very interesting concept, something that I use all the time myself, especially when I'm out teaching and we're in a kind of a camping or a wilderness environment. But I also use them at home too. I get actually to the point where I miss having the tooth stick. It's actually much more refreshing than even the more holistic or natural types of toothpaste, and very good for your gums and very good for your teeth. What I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to have still pictures, so I won't be purely video. I think you'll learn a lot from still pictures, and I can have bullet points, I can have text and things that you'll be able to look at aside from just looking at my ugly face while I'm up here talking. And aside from that, I think by doing that it breaks things down step by step and makes it a little bit easier to learn as well. One of the things I wanted to do real quickly before I get started is give credit where credit is due. I believe strongly in doing that. Although the concept of tooth sticks has probably been around thousands of years, maybe as long as we've been around as humans walking the earth, there's one person who's put a lot of work into putting the word out, and that is Doug Simons with his Alternatives to Tooth Care. I think he has a DVD out now. I saw his ideas at a seminar years ago, and although the saying, there's an old saying that's something to the effect of, if you really want to create an apple pie from scratch, you have to begin by creating the universe. What we do is we learn from other people, and we take those ideas and we expand on them, and that's what I've really done here. I've taken a lot of his ideas and just the concept of tooth care in general, using the stick, and really worked on it and come up with some of the herbs that I was using before as tooth powders, and experimented over probably the last decade in terms of tooth and gum care with different herbs, and kind of come up with what I like best. And so somebody will probably take what I've got and expand from there. But again, I think it's always important to acknowledge people that you've heard this information from before yourself. Thanks, Doug. Now, when we're talking about tooth care, gum care, using herbs and hygiene, dental hygiene using herbs, there are some basic high-level topics that I think we should probably go through and try to touch on. I want to try to do this as briefly as possible to make it an interesting, short video, but bear in mind that this is actually a class that I give that's about 90 minutes, sometimes even 2 hours, because there's a lot of detail that we can get into here that I'm not going to in this video, but I'll at least get the top level subjects laid out for you enough that I think you can take it and run with it. Or if you, of course, have any questions about it, you can always email me or post on the YouTube page, or you can come to my classes, or check out my blog. I'll probably have a blog up on this. If I don't, I don't think I have one right now, so I'll put a blog up on this subject to try to give a little bit more detail as well. So the top level subjects here that we need to talk about first is just the stick itself. When we're talking about tooth sticks, what is a tooth stick, and what are the dimensions of a tooth stick? What should they be ideally? What types of plant material work out best? In other words, what plants, what trees, and even herbaceous. There's all kinds of different plants we can look at. And the obvious thing is we don't want toxic plants, but beyond that, there are some plants that are better than others for this too. Along with that is the actual physical technique of using the stick itself. That is important as well. So depending on what you're trying to do and what you may be trying to fix in terms of even cavities, there's some technique involved with how you use the tooth stick in order to be more effective with it. Then we move into the herbs. We'll talk about the herbs in terms of the herbs for the tooth powder. And by herbs, I mean both herbs and some different essential oils that you can use. I will give you my favorite recipe and my favorite formula for this, but there are many different herbs, and I'll try to give you a list of some of those, some of the ones I've tried in the past, and some of the ones that I haven't even tried, but that would certainly work. And you can try them out yourself and make your own recipes if you want. Try mine, try other ones, and that's the beauty of herbalism, is that it is different for everybody, because everybody has a different relationship to plants. Everybody's a little bit different. We all have different constitutions. We all have different things that we like, to put it very simply, oversimplified maybe. But the beauty of herbalism is that everybody brings something to the table that's a little bit different because of their own personal relationship with plants. And so you'll find you can explore that yourself with something as simple and benign as what would seem to be, just dental hygiene. And yet it is actually a very, very important facet of overall health. And I'm not going to get into that, but there's a lot more to dental hygiene than just your mouth. There are numerous effects that poor dental hygiene can have on your overall health. And again, I'm not going to get that's one of the things we get into more in a class. But just know that in general, that dental hygiene is effective, or is important for more than just things like clean teeth and cavities and bad breath and all of that, or avoiding bad breath, I should say. So we move from the powder that we will use into, and things like how fine does that powder need to be, and what is that, and what types of herbs would we use, how do you powder it, that type of thing. And then we'll finish up with talking about a couple of different herbs that you should consider taking depending on what it is you're trying to do with tooth care as well. In other words, if you're trying to deal with cavities, how you can actually take some herbs internally that might assist in that aspect of your dental hygiene and your dental health as well. So that is those will be the sort of the high level topics that we're going to cover. So let's talk very briefly about the tooth stick itself. The first and most obvious thing that should come to mind about a tooth stick is that it should not be something poisonous, right? You should not be using a poisonous plant. So I'm sure I don't have to say too much about that, but you obviously wouldn't go out and pick a stem of a poison oak vine or an oleander plant or something like that. So the type of stick, it can be tree, it can be a shrub, it can be a herbaceous plant, as long as you know what it is and you know that it's not toxic. Some of the things that work really well are fruit trees, so apple tree, cherry wood, pear, peach, whatever happens to grow. Olive is good as well. Another one that's really good in the central Texas area actually is a juniper. The ash juniper, which is everywhere. In central Texas, people call it mountain cedar. Those twigs are fine. Traditionally, licorice root has been used. So the root, actually, the licorice, and that's probably what I'll actually use for this, the photographs and stuff, and just to show how, for licorice root, because they're fairly thick, they need to be cut down to about quarters. Another thing that works really well here that I like a lot is the wild rosemary. Just strip off the leaves and use the leaves, of course, for rosemary, as an herb, as a culinary herb, and then let the twigs dry. And it grows to a shrub size here in central Texas, so I let those twigs dry, and they're very good tooth sticks. A little bit on the thin side. Let me talk just briefly about size. The size of the tooth stick should be somewhere around 2 to 3 inches long. Now this depends on what kind of a jar you have to store it in and what you're going to pick for that. And that's important. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we actually put everything together and why it's important how you store it. That you'll see why that's important. So the length depends on the container, but 2 to 3 inches long approximately, and about the width of the thickest part of a toothpick would be the thinnest that I would say would ever want to be, and the thickest would be maybe a pencil, like a number 2 pencil that you sharpen. If you were to go from the tip back to the thickest part of the pencil, if you sharpen down the pencil about halfway up to maybe 3/4 of the way up to where it's the actual full width of that pencil, would be about the thickest it would probably want to be. If you were to take a pencil and you had a piece of stick like that, I would say to cut that in half, or even into quarters, then you would probably be about the right thickness. And so what you're trying to get out of this is that you're trying to get both. It's nice to get both a toothpick type of effect, so you can use it as a toothpick to be able to get in between teeth. But also, more importantly, is the actual brush effect that you can get if you, especially as you chew on a toothstick. If you put it in your mouth and as you chew on it, you'll find that it breaks down and it becomes literally like a woody type of brush. And so it's really good. You can use that brush to literally to brush your teeth the same way that you would use the bristles of a toothbrush, but in my opinion, better. Better gum massage between the tooth and the gum at that borderline where they meet, and better at getting in between the cracks too. And then most importantly, even before it gets broken down like that, if you need to be able to dig into what is a cavity or starting to be a cavity, that's important as well. So again, rosemary, juniper, licorice root, of course. You'll probably have to buy that unless you're in an area where you've got that growing a lot, and it certainly does. It grows. You can grow licorice just about anywhere in the United States, especially, and we've got some different species of licorice here that are very good medicinally as well. Any of the fruit trees again, and and basically any tree or any shrub that you know is not toxic. And it's even better if it's something that has a medicinal effect to it. Another one down here that's really good is prickly ash, for instance, which is also called toothache tree. Very, very good, and it gives you that same, also it's got its own sort of, it's one of the herbs you can actually use in the tooth powder mix as well. And then one last thing to say about that is you can even use the thorns, like for mesquite thorns or huisach or any of the thorns that are really big and long and pretty thick. You could actually use a thorn and then you'd have a really sharp toothpick on one end, and on the other end you'd have the brush version of it. So that's the actual mechanics of the stick itself and the type of wood or the type of vegetable matter or the type of herbaceous or shrub that it would want to be. Well, let's talk a little bit about the herbs that we would use and what they would be, what we would do with them. How is it that they work as a powder? And that's what we're going for here. We're trying to go for a tooth powder. We want the powder to be fine enough that we can use it in our teeth, and it's not, the matter is not too big so that it doesn't get stuck in our throat. If the herb matter is more of the cut and sifted size, then you'll end up choking on it because it's, or you got to chew it in order to be able to swallow it. And we generally don't swallow any of this. We try to spit, just like you spit toothpaste, you generally will spit this, and you'll want to, because we use essential oils that are pretty strong. And it's not that you can't swallow it. You certainly could, and it wouldn't have any ill effect, but you generally won't want to. But all that aside, you still want a fine powder. The finer the powder, the better. And powder comes in different types of fineness, which is usually denoted by the pound sign, and it's usually 20, 40, or 60 is how you can buy it, and that number 20, 40, or 60 it refers to the number of holes per inch in a sieve or in a strainer that powder will pass through. So in other words, the higher the number, the finer the powder. And most herbs that you buy, if you're buying them online, will probably be in the middle there. Will be in the range of the 40 pound. So anyway, the types of herbs. Let's talk about the herbs. So if you have herbs, or you're drying your own herbs, which is great. If you're doing your own, that's even better. But you're going to need to dry them, and then you're going to need to grind them, and you're going to need to grind them down to about that fineness. It's fine enough to where they're not, pieces of leaf that are sticking to your gums and your teeth and such. What are the herbs that we actually are going for here? What are the ones that we want? So some of the herbs that let me just tell you my favorite recipe, my favorite formula that I've come to over a period of years has been myrrh and horsetail and not prickly ash, although that could be one of them, but myrrh, horsetail, and Inula helenium or Echinacea. Sorry, I do all the talking for the videos. I just do it separately. I don't even write stuff down on a piece of paper because it's a lot easier to just talk in the free, and then I'll listen to it and put it down in text so that you've got something to look at on the video. So anyway, those three: Echinacea, myrrh, and and horsetail are my three favorite to put into a formula. Now, you could use prickly ash would be good in there. You could even use, depending on whether you had some kind of gum problems going on, you could use Echinacea, preferably Echinacea augustifolia, if so, which also has that same tingly effect that prickly ash does. So prickly ash is also called toothache tree. If you take some prickly ash berry or the bark or the leaf and you rub it on your gum, it'll tingle. And the name of that actual constituent that causes a tingle is called xanthoxylene. Well, Echinacea actually has xanthoxylene in it as well and causes that same kind of tingle. And that's how you know that you have fresh or good Echinacea augustifolia is if you take a little bit and put it on your tongue, you'll get that tingle over long term. Spilanthes is another good one, a very good one, and it also has that same kind of a tingle to it. So there are several, so half a dozen or so right off the top of my head that I think work really well for gum and tooth care. Inulahelenium or elecampane used to be used in Western Europe as people would chew the root as a breath freshener and as a gum, to try to fight periodontal type diseases. It's an antimicrobial. Myrrh is also an antimicrobial, very good for, and that's what we're trying to do. We're basically trying to kill the bacteria that form on the sugar and around your tooth and break down the enamel and eventually cause cavities. Horsetail is also has a couple of different aspects to it. One is that it's a very good abrasive, so it'll help help rub and clean the teeth in that way. Secondly, it's one of those herbs that we need to take internally, or we could take internally to help us, and I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. But I wanted to get through the ones we'll put in the powder first. The final component in the powder that we need is some essential oil. So essential oil, what I prefer to use is peppermint, but you could use spearmint. You can use cinnamon, although cinnamon can be a little bit strong. You kind of got to cut back on it, or cut the essential oil a little bit with a vegetable oil, a little of some sort in order to cut it, because it will be pretty strong. You could use tea tree oil. There are several different oils you could use depending on what you want as a taste and what you like. But I would highly recommend, my favorite, and I've been through several different oils, and my favorite by far is peppermint. Although I think spearmint's a little less intense. Peppermint's also is also good for the digestive system, and even though it's a little stronger than the spearmint, I prefer it. I like it. So I would say, and you can even mix it to it. You can mix spearmint and peppermint together. You can mix. You can find some others to mix if you want. But those are the two that I would say have come out on top for me. So this oil, what we need to do, the actual procedure that we use is we take the powdered herb and we put it into our container. So the container that I use is a thick plastic, like high density plastic, so that we don't worry about. I don't want to worry about BPA or anything like that. I want to have a thick density plastic, and I get all of mine from Freund containers. Freundcontainer.com is where you can find them, and we're going to put in about enough of the powder to maybe make about a ½ inch to no more than an inch of powder on the bottom of this, and it's probably somewhere between a ½ and 3/4 of an inch worth of powder. We mix that together. We can just mix it in 1-to-1 ratio. For the formula that I gave you that I like, it's basically 1-to-1 of horsetail, elecampane, and myrrh. So once I've done that, I dry mix it to get them all mixed up together. So then I go ahead and I mix in the oil, whatever the oil is going to be used. So in this case, peppermint or spearmint is what I would choose, and I mix that in just enough to make it barely wet. Like you want all the powder to be wet to where it's starting to expand, and you'll see how it does expand. But it doesn't want to be soaking wet. You certainly don't want to have any puddles. You don't want to have any of it goopy. You want it to be wet enough that if you were to pick it up and squeeze it, it would stick together with itself, kind of. Parts of it might fall off, but for the most part it would stick together, but no wetter than that. So you'll see from the pictures exactly what I'm talking about. And so then once we've mixed all of that up, then we go ahead and cut all the sticks that we want. Or, you can also, if you're out in the woods or whatever, camping, you can also just pick sticks off a tree and use them, straight off the tree. But for the sake of being able to carry this around with us and use it, or use it at home or whatever, we want to put the sticks in there. And the nice thing about doing that is the sticks get really infused with the oil too, and it really makes them very nice. So we take the sticks, we cut them to the right length. If we need to split them down like licorice root, then we go ahead and split them down to the right thickness or diameter. And so then we have, however many that we're going to do, and I usually can get about a dozen to maybe 20 of them together, stick them in the jar, put the lid down, tighten the lid down on the jar, and just let those sticks rest in that powder, and they will get infused with the oil, and they'll get infused with the herbs, and they're really good. So then when you need one, you just unscrew the lid, pull out one, and you use it. And so the way that we use that is we scoop a small amount onto that stick, about as much as the stick will hold. So it's, I don't know, 1/8 of a teaspoon maybe, or something about that, of powder, of that damp powder basically. And then you can rub that into your teeth and gums. And if you need to, you can get a little bit more and, do one side of your mouth and do the other, whatever. And then the other thing we're doing is, if you have any cavities, starting to form, you can use a mirror and you can look and see what you got. And you can, of course, get a dental mirror for $5. You can get a really good dental mirror, and then you can actually see what it is that you're trying to dig out. And you can actually work on that. If you have a dark spot that's starting to form, you can work on that with a stick much better than you can, of course, with a toothbrush. And you can actually get that dark, the cavity forming area you can clean it up. And a lot of times you can get to it a lot easier with a stick than you can with a toothbrush too. So that's what you're doing. So you're cleaning your gums, you're cleaning your teeth, and you are using this tooth powder to do that with. So the final step in this is if you actually are working on a cavity, if you actually do have problems, you have really bad sensitivity maybe that you notice that's happening, you notice an actual brown spot or something going on with the tooth and you're working on it, what you can also do is you can increase your intake of horsetail itself. Now what horsetail does is it speeds up the growth of enamel greatly, so it really helps your enamel grow. Horsetail is good for things like hair and nails and enamel. It's high in a number of different types of minerals that will help with that. And so what you can do is you can up that. You can take about the equivalent of dried, good quality dried horsetail, about the equivalent of about 3 to 4 teaspoons of that a day is what you want to take. And that's enough to be able to and you don't take a long term. Horsetail is one of those that you don't take for more than about 3 or 4 weeks. Without a break. It's just a little bit, it's a medium toxicity herb. So you take the horsetail, you work with a tooth stick, and you will find that your enamel will grow back over the top of whatever that cavity is, and that the cavity will repair itself. People can bring back cavities even when there's actually starting to be black. Where a cavity starts off and it's kind of a light, starts to become discolored, then more of a brown, and then eventually will turn to black. And so even if it's black, as long as you're working on it real good with a stick, and you can rub that stuff out of there, you can get it out of there. It's just the same thing that a dentist does, is they drill it out, and you're doing the same thing, but you're doing it with a stick, and you're doing it so obviously more gentle. And then you're taking that horsetail, which also helps your enamel grow back over the top of that. So that is that in a nutshell is what we've got for the general tooth care for tooth sticks. Now there are many other things we could talk about here. We can talk about gum disease. We can talk about gum poultices. We can talk about canker sores and all those kinds of things. But there's more information, I think, than I'm going to be able to put into one short video. And again, these are subjects that this is one of those subjects that could go on for quite a ways. There's a lot you can do when you start talking about herbal dental health, but this at least is maybe a short introduction for you. If you like this, stay tuned on my channel. I'll try to come out with some more in-depth stuff here. You can also sign up for my online classes. You can come to my classes, my school. I have a school in Austin. I give classes in Austin, Texas. I give classes in San Antonio, Texas. I give classes that are over the period of weekend, and as well as evening classes too. So even I have people commuting in even from Dallas and places like that for the weekend, and then they camp on my site. On our training, I have 50 acres north of San Antonio, and then we have a location we go to in Austin as well. So So you're able to come and take the classes on site. That's great. If you can't and you want to take my online course, that's great too. Or if this is just where you want to get your information, then please take it and run with it. And feel free to email me or post onto here if you have any questions that I can help you out with. I'd be happy to. Thanks for watching. Bye.